For many decades, the Titanic lay in complete silence, its mysteries buried deep in darkness. Robert Ballard always believed the story did not end there. When he finally arrived at the wreck, the ocean floor exposed details no report and no survivor had ever been able to explain. Moments reserved in time, choices forever trapped in twisted steel. He carried the weight of what he witnessed for years. Now, as time begins to run short, Ballard finally reveals what he discovered, and it challenges everything the world thought it knew about the Titanic. Legend before the legend. Long before the world knew the exact resting place of the Titanic, Robert Ballard already sensed that what lay on the ocean floor was more than a ship. It was a truth history had never fully confronted, waiting in silence to be uncovered. In 1912, the Titanic stood as the ultimate symbol of human ambition. She was a floating palace, proudly called unsinkable. People gathered just to admire her size and luxury. Her steel, her engines, her design all represented progress, giving the impression that humanity had finally mastered nature itself. But on the night of April 14th, in the bitter cold of the North Atlantic, that confidence shattered. An iceberg ripped through the ship's hull, and within hours, more than 1,500 lives vanished into darkness and freezing water. What remained were stories, grief, and one haunting question: where had the great ship disappeared? For over 70 years, the Titanic existed only as a ghost, resting beneath 12,000 feet of crushing ocean pressure. No diver could reach her. No sonar system was precise enough to find her. She lived on as rumor and legend, pieced together through survivor accounts, faded photographs, and a rare artifact that surfaced from the sea. Every search ended in failure. The ocean waited quietly, guarding its secret, until one man decided it was time to uncover the truth. Robert Ballard had spent years pursuing history beneath the waves. He had charted sunken submarines and explored the deep with the mind of scientists and the curiosity of a storyteller. To him, the ocean floor was a vast museum, preserving human moments in steel, sediment, and rust. When he began the search for the Titanic in 1985, expectations were modest. The world anticipated technical footage, perhaps a damaged hull, maybe a brief glimpse of a long-lost wreck. What Ballard ultimately found reshaped everything. He did not just discover broken metal and scattered rivets. He uncovered a silent record of lives abruptly cut short. The Titanic was shattered by time and immense force, yet remarkably complete in the story it still told, waiting patiently to be seen. Inside the mission few knew about. In the early 1980s, the United States Navy was facing a problem that required absolute secrecy and flawless precision. Two nuclear submarines, the USS Thresher and the USS Scorpion, had disappeared into the vast Atlantic Ocean, leaving behind unanswered questions and serious classified risks. Finding them was critical for national security, but there was a danger. Every sonar sweep and search operation risked drawing the attention of Soviet intelligence. The Navy needed someone who understood the deep ocean and could work quietly without raising suspicion. Robert Ballard was a perfect choice. On the surface, the mission sounded simple, but nothing about it was meant to be transparent. Ballard's real task was to locate the missing submarines, document their wreckage, and study conditions related to nuclear safety. Every image and every scan had to be precise. At the same time, the operation had to appear completely harmless. A visible military mission would have raised red flags around the world, so the Navy needed a convincing public explanation. That explanation was the Titanic. By this time, Ballard and his team had already developed advanced technology capable of operating at extreme depths. Remote control vehicles could move smoothly across the seafloor, far beyond where humans could survive, while submersibles captured clear images without disturbing the environment below. The Navy's classified objective aligned perfectly with a mission the public would immediately understand and support: the search for the most famous shipwreck in history. The Titanic became the ideal cover story, a distraction no one would question. To the public, the expedition appeared to be a bold attempt to find a legendary ocean liner lost for decades. Cameras and sensors scanned the seabed, tracing debris paths and mapping regions never before explored. Journalists, scientists, and history enthusiasts focused on boilers, portholes, and the haunting outlines of the bow and stern. Almost no one realized that beneath this historic search, Ballard was also mapping nuclear submarine wrecks and collecting data vital to national security. Many years later, after classified documents were released and Ballard was finally allowed to speak freely, he revealed the truth. The Titanic search had been a carefully planned cover, layered over a mission far more sensitive than the public ever imagined. The world celebrated a historic discovery, while the Navy quietly gathered critical intelligence that remained secret for years. rather than diminishing the achievement. This revelation highlighted Ballard's brilliance, showing how he balanced science, secrecy, and global curiosity at the same time. This hidden mission added a new dimension to the Titanic story. It was no longer just about tragedy and human ambition. It also became a story of strategy, secrecy, and calculated decisions shaped by the tensions of the Cold War. The discovery that captured global attention was deeply connected to silent geopolitical pressures unfolding far from public sight. Guided by respect for history and mastery of deep-sea technology, Ballard managed that balance with extraordinary precision. The technology that made the discovery possible. At 12,000 feet below the surface, the ocean becomes a completely different world. The pressure there is strong enough to crush steel, and the darkness is endless. No human diver could survive at such depths, and traditional sonar could only provide rough, unclear shapes. To overcome this, Ballard relied on advanced technology, designing tools that allowed him to look into the deep with a level of detail never achieved before. At the heart of this effort was Argo, a remotely operated sled fitted with multiple cameras and live video transmission. It moved quietly across the ocean floor, sending back sharp images that revealed details sonar could never detect. Every small movement of the camera and every change in lighting slowly transformed the dark seabed into a clear, readable map. Argo moved with purpose and patience, recording not only twisted metal and wreckage, but also the faint historical clues buried in mud and sediment. Working alongside Argo was Angus, an unmanned camera system designed to capture wider views of the seafloor. While Argo focused on close-up detail, Angus scanned larger areas beyond the sled's direct path, sending additional visual data back to the surface. Together, these two systems revolutionized deep-sea exploration. They opened access to an environment that had been unreachable to humans, allowing the Titanic to be explored without exposing anyone to the crushing pressure of the deep. Ballard also rethought the way the search itself was conducted. Conventional sonar searches were slow and often disappointing, offering little more than vague silhouettes. Instead, he adopted a strategy borrowed from submarine investigations, tracking debris fields. When the Titanic sank, it broke apart, scattering boilers, steel beams, and personal belongings across a massive area of the seabed. By following these debris trails, Ballard could estimate where the main sections of the ship lay without seeing them immediately. Each piece of wreckage acted like a clue, guiding the team closer to the full story through careful and methodical observation. The coordination between technology and strategy was precise and deliberate. Operators on the surface controlled the sleds, adjusting their movement based on live video feedback. Every image was closely examined for signs of human-made structures, bent steel, unnatural shapes, anything that confirmed the presence of the lost ship. Success depended as much on human instinct as on technical accuracy. Through this combination of innovation and tactical thinking, Ballard turned what once seemed impossible into reality. The Titanic was no longer just a myth or a distant legend spoken about in history books. It became a real destination, accessible through machines, expertise, and a deep understanding of how wreckage settles and spreads across the ocean floor. What those missions revealed was a first true look into a hidden world, one shaped by disaster, silence, and the slow passage of time. The moment of discovery. After weeks of careful and exhausting scanning, the first undeniable sign of the Titanic appeared just after midnight on September 1st, 1985. Until that moment, the ocean floor had shown nothing but endless darkness, silent mud, and emptiness. Then, suddenly, something different appeared on the monitors. It was a shape that did not belong to nature, not rock, not sediment, not shaped by currents. The control room fell silent as the image slowly came into focus. The first clearly identifiable object was a massive boiler from the ship's engine rooms. Rusted and immense, it rested on the seabed like a sacred relic in a lightless cathedral. The first solid proof that the legend beneath the waves was real. From that single discovery, the team began following a trail of debris. Steel beams, hull panels, and twisted fragments were scattered across the ocean floor, stretching far beyond what anyone had expected. Each piece told part of a violent story, how the ship tore itself apart, and how time slowly claimed what remained. Ballard guided the camera sleds with extreme care, knowing that somewhere along this path lay the core of the Titanic. After hours of tracking the scattered remains, the screens finally revealed the answer. Two enormous sections of the ship's hull came into view, the bow and the stern, separated by nearly 2,000 feet, broken apart by forces unleashed almost 74 years earlier. What appeared on the monitors was more than scientific confirmation. It was deeply emotional. Corroded steel rose in the mud like the bones of a fallen giant, long forgotten but not erased. Staircases, bulkheads, and railings stood in quiet testimony to the ambition that had once shaped the ship. The sheer scale of it was overwhelming. The bow, still sharp and elegant in its shape, retained a haunting dignity despite decades of decay. The stern, crushed and twisted beyond recognition, told a different story, one of chaos, violence, and immense pressure. For Ballard and his team, the moment carried both awe and solemn respect. They were witnessing something hidden from the world for generations, yet the wreck felt alive with the presence of those who had died there. The Titanic rested roughly 350 nautical miles off the coast of Newfoundland, far from land, in waters so deep that no human could ever survive unaided. At 12,000 feet, the pressure was beyond imagination. Yet through technology, Ballard brought that unreachable world into clear view. Every image sent to the surface reflected both the brilliance of human innovation and the unstoppable force of the ocean. As Ballard studied the massive hull sections resting in the mud, he understood this was not simply a wreck. It was a frozen story of ambition, failure, and memory, preserved in steel and silence. The discovery instantly changed the limits of underwater exploration. For the public, the Titanic shifted from legend into undeniable reality. For Ballard, it was a result of decades of preparation, discipline, and instinct. He had not only found a ship lost to history, but unlocked a doorway into the deep past. Every frame transmitted carried immense weight. The loss of human life, the cost of arrogance, and the eerie beauty of a vessel that once claimed it could never sink. First, real images and what they revealed. The earliest images sent back by Ballard's cameras were unlike anything the world had ever witnessed. On the dim, grainy screens, the first shapes to appear were the boilers. Huge steel cylinders that once powered the ship, now abandoned and twisted, resting in thick mud. Sheets of hull plating stuck out at unnatural angles, ripped apart by the violence of the sinking. Steel beams crossed over one another like the ribcage of some enormous sea creature, while broken machinery lay scattered nearby. Silent reminders of the scale and complexity that once defined the Titanic. Every image carried a strange balance of sharp detail and destruction, showing both the brilliance of human engineering and the brutal force that had destroyed it. As the camera sleds revealed more of the wreck, Ballard prepared for deeper exploration using Alvin, the manned submersible designed to survive pressures that would crush ordinary vessels instantly. Inside Alvin, Ballard saw far more than damaged steel. Portholes, once bright windows into passenger cabins, now framed endless black water, like memories frozen in place. Staircases emerged from the debris, once elegant and grand, now corroded and broken, still hinting at a luxury that made the Titanic famous. Smaller remains, wooden panels, pieces of furniture, personal belongings, quietly suggested the lives that filled these spaces. The interior felt deeply unsettling, a silent museum preserved by crushing pressure, icy temperatures, and decades without human touch. The images confirmed what historians had debated for years but could never fully prove. The Titanic had broken in two. The bow and stern rested separately on the seafloor, divided by distance and disaster. The bow remained sharply defined, almost graceful despite its damage. The stern, by contrast, was collapsed and mangled, clear evidence of the tremendous forces that ripped it away during the final moments of the sinking. Survivors had described the ship breaking apart, and later studies supported those claims. But now the proof was absolute, captured in unmistakable images. For Ballard and his team, the importance of what they were seeing went far beyond technology or discovery. They were looking at the final state of a ship that had lived in legend for generations, seeing the physical truth behind decades of stories and speculation. Every bolt, every warped plate, every darkened passageway told a story that words alone could never fully express. This was not just wreckage. It was a record of human ambition, of failure, of lives cut short and moments frozen forever. By combining remote camera systems with manned submersibles, Ballard was able to present the Titanic story in a way the world could finally understand. These images carried weight because they were direct, undeniable evidence of history, preserved in a place almost no one could ever visit. Those watching from the surface could sense the scale, the fragility, and the quiet power of what lay beneath the ocean. The Titanic was no longer just a rumor or a legend. Through these first images, it became a real, undeniable witness to its own destruction, a reminder of the forces that shaped ships and the lives carried aboard them. Every photograph and every video feed revealed a world untouched by time above the sea, yet slowly reshaped by it below. The Titanic had finally stepped out of myth and into reality, and the truth it exposed was as powerful and haunting as any story ever told. What Ballard found but did not bring up. As the cameras revealed the Titanic in its twisted, corroded state, Ballard understood immediately that this place was far more than a shipwreck. It was a grave, a silent resting place where human ambition and human lives had collided with the raw power of the ocean. From the very beginning, he made a firm decision. Nothing would be taken. Removing objects he believed would not preserve history, it would violate it. To Ballard, the Titanic was never a source of treasure. It was a sacred memorial, kept intact by crushing pressure, freezing cold, and endless darkness. The wreck itself seemed to command respect. Rustic-less, delicate, icicle-like formations created by iron-eating bacteria hung from beams and plates, slowly feeding on the ship's metal. These fragile structures both destroyed and preserved the Titanic at the same time. They look almost artistic, like sculptures shaped by nature, yet they were signs of relentless decay. Each rusticle marked the passing of time, a reminder that the ship was still deteriorating, still fading, even many decades after it sank. Ballard studied them with awe, aware that he was witnessing a balance between erosion and preservation unlike anything on land. Inside the wreck, quiet traces of human life remained. Shoes lay scattered across the seafloor, worn and separated, marking places where people had once stood. Pieces of luggage, household items, and personal belongings rested in silence, suggesting everyday lives suddenly interrupted. These objects were simple, even ordinary, yet deeply moving. They represented moments frozen forever, memories not captured in photographs or records, but preserved where bodies had long since disappeared. The exploration teams carefully documented these details, recording images and video that showed both the immense scale of the wreck and the deeply personal loss embedded within it. The twisted hull formed a haunting backdrop. Staircases led nowhere, opening into empty corridors. Portholes no longer revealed cabins, only endless black water. Walls that once displayed decoration and comfort were now stripped bare, coated only in rust and sediment. Every scene emphasized how fragile human achievement becomes when faced with the ocean's power. Ballard treated the site as a historical archive, where every object and formation held meaning that could not be owned or removed. He chose observation over extraction, mapping and recording the wreck, while leaving it exactly where it lay. The Titanic continued to exist through its decay, through rustic-less, scattered shoes, and broken steel. Its story survived not in artifacts displayed behind glass, but in careful study guided by restraint and respect. In the end, the Titanic remained what it had become, a monument beneath the sea, both a grave and a record of history, slowly surrendering to time, yet still holding the stories of the lives it claimed. Ballard ensured that it would remain that way, what was left untouched. The Titanic holds countless stories of lives cut short, but at the wreck site, humanity has felt more through absence than presence. No bodies remain. At 12,000 feet beneath the ocean, the crushing pressure and freezing cold, far below what scientists call the calcium carbonate compensation depth, ensure that organic matter cannot survive. What remains of the personal items, fragment of a world that once thrived above the waves. Shoes, dishes, letters, clothing, all lie scattered across the seafloor, silent witnesses to the tragedy, marking the places where lives once were but are now gone. Ballard understood the significance of these remnants. They were not treasures to be collected or displayed. They were echoes of humanity preserved in a harsh, relentless environment. Each object carried the weight of a story, a moment frozen the instant the ship met its fate. The absence of bodies made these artifacts even more poignant. A lone shoe tipped on its side suggested a hurried step. A half-open suitcase spoke of abruptly abandoned plans. Together, they created a quiet memorial, conveying the scale of loss without the need for words or images. The wreck has been officially recognized as a site of historical and cultural importance. Since 2012, it has been protected under UNESCO guidelines, governed by international laws designed to preserve maritime heritage. These protections acknowledge that the Titanic is more than a shipwreck. It is a grave, a testament to human ambition and vulnerability, and a monument that belongs to collective memory rather than any individual or government. Over the years, salvage operations have recovered more than 5,500 artifacts, cataloged carefully and displayed in museums worldwide. These items provide tangible links to the people who sailed aboard, yet Ballard himself never approved of removals. He believed the most meaningful preservation occurs where history and tragedy meet the ocean floor. Walking through the site, one is struck by the scale of the human cost. The bow and stern, separated and silent, stand as monuments themselves. Personal items scattered across the debris field remind us that each entry in the casualty list was a life lived, a story ended abruptly. There's a quiet dignity in the stillness, a silent insistence that these events are not forgotten, even if the people themselves are gone. Beneath the waves, the Titanic exists as both a warning and a remembrance. It shows the fragility of human plans, the unpredictability of nature, and the lasting power of memory in unexpected forms. Thanks to Ballard's careful work, even though bodies no longer remain, the stories, the artifacts, and the weight of the lives lost endure, preserved forever in their place. The Titanic today, decay and rediscovery. Even decades after its discovery, the Titanic keeps revealing new stories, even as it slowly crumbles. Modern exploration shows sections that once seemed solid, like the bow railing, now collapsing under their own weight. Rust and corrosion steadily spread, reshaping the wreck and erasing structures that survived the initial sinking. Experts warn that in the coming decades, major parts of the ship may disappear completely, leaving only fragments scattered across the ocean floor. The vessel that once seemed immortal in legend is gradually yielding to the same forces that sank it. Yet, despite this ongoing decay, the wreck continues to surprise explorers with hidden discoveries. Recently, items long buried within the debris have been uncovered, including the remarkable small statue, the Diana of Versailles, preserved among the wreckage. Finds like this provide a tangible link to the people who were aboard, reflecting their lives and the moments interrupted in a single tragic night. Each discovery adds depth to our understanding of the disaster and highlights just how fragile and fleeting what remains truly is. Some artifacts recovered from the site have traveled around the world, giving audiences a direct connection to the Titanic. Exhibits such as the Big Piece, a 15-ton section of the hull, allow people to experience a part of the ship without diving to the deep. These fragments bring history into the present, inviting reflection, awe, and fascination. Meanwhile, the rest of the wreck continues to lie on the ocean floor, slowly transforming as corrosion reshapes its steel, preserving both its scale and its story in raw, haunting form. Ballard's work extended well beyond the Titanic. He discovered other iconic wrecks, including the German battleship Bismarck, the aircraft carrier USS Yorktown, and John F. Kennedy's PD-109. Each expedition showcases dedication to uncovering history, while keeping these sites intact. His approach combined careful scientific documentation with the ability to convey the human stories behind the wrecks, letting the public experience history vividly and personally. Today, the Titanic stands as a symbol of endurance and memory. Ballard ensured the wreck would be studied with respect, preserving its story while sharing its importance with the world. Though the ship continues to decay, its narrative, the lives it carried, and the lessons it imparts remain alive, accessible to anyone willing to explore its history. What Ballard ultimately admitted. When Robert Ballard reflected on the Titanic, he made one thing very clear. This mission was never about uncovering a hidden treasure or creating a dramatic reveal. What he discovered went far deeper. The ship lay torn apart by force and time, its bow and stern separated, steel twisted and corroded. But even in that destruction, it told a story that no book or photograph could fully capture. What stayed with Ballard most were the human traces. Personal belongings marked the spaces where lives had once unfolded. To Ballard, the Titanic was a story written in metal and decay. Shoes rested where passengers had once hurried. Portholes framed empty corridors, and staircases stood as silent witnesses to both ordinary moments and historic events. These were not items meant for display. They were proof that people had lived there, dreamed there, and believed in tomorrow while walking those very decks. As he spoke of the site, Ballard's tone shifted from discovery to responsibility. This expedition was more than a technical achievement. It was a moral choice. He believed the wreck deserved care, not looting. Removing objects would strip meaning from the site itself. Its importance came from what remained exactly where it belonged. By leaving everything in place, Ballard preserved the story in its entirety, allowing it to be studied, mapped, and understood without reducing to mere souvenirs. This decision shaped how the world views the Titanic today. Ballard showed that some discoveries lose their power when removed. The strength of this discovery lay in restraint. Images, documentation, and careful observation became the tools, not extraction. The ship remained intact as a historical record, not scattered pieces and collections. In revealing this, Ballard taught a larger lesson. He showed how fragile human ambition can be when measured against the ocean and time. Even our greatest creations do not last forever. They endure only as long as conditions allow. Today, Ballard's reflections carry the weight of what he witnessed. The Titanic still lies on the ocean floor, telling its story through steel, corrosion, and structure. For those who observe with care, it continues to offer insight into history, mortality, and the delicate traces humanity leaves behind. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one.